it's very, very important that the products that we create actually respond to everyone's needs. And I think today we see a lot of examples where they're not. And because technology is going to be so fundamental in everything that we do, I think it's especially important that we get girls into technology so that they also contribute to shaping our future.
Welcome back to Heja Framtiden, the Swedish podcast on the future. Today we'll meet Isabelle Ringnes, a Norwegian important advocate for diversity and gender equality in the tech sector and in society as a whole. This episode is brought to you by Heja Framtiden in collaboration with the Warp Institute and Singularity U Nordic Summit. I'm Christian von Essen, and you can find more information about this podcast on hejaframtiden.se. Please follow us on social media and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Also visit patreon.com to donate a few dollars if you like what you hear. Now sit back and get inspired by the amazing Isabelle Ringnes. Welcome, Isabelle Ringnes, to Heja Framtiden.
Thank you so much.
You are from Norway, but we'll keep this in English anyway.
That's perfectly fine. I know that there's sometimes a language barrier between the two.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Yeah,
I used to work in Sweden for a year, and very often I had to switch over to English for people to understand me.
That's so sad.
Unfortunately, but I understand Swedish perfectly because Norwegian people, they grew up with Swedish on television, so we're used to it.
Exactly. And I studied in Norway, so...
Oh, you did?
I have all the dialects.
Where in Norway did you study?
In Oslo, BI, NMH, so Norges Markedshögskola.
Very cool.
Skausplass, Grünerløkka.
Cool.
It's not around anymore, though. But and then the program went on from Norway 2 years, then Singapore 1 year, and Malaysia 6 months. So that was the...
That's awesome.
Marketing program. Yeah, it was
an
amazing.
Experience.
Yeah. So you're here at Singularity U Nordic Summit because you are, or partly because you're co-founder of TENK, Tech Network for Women in Norway. And you are now a faculty member of Singularity U.
Yes.
Right. But let us go back to your story. How did you end up in the tech business from the beginning?
Well, I went to Bay as well, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. And I started working at a media company in Norway closely after that. And there was a very horrible incident. The 22nd of July happened. And that was when there was a big bombing and many people lost their lives. And I was working in the media business at the time. And it made me realize how incredibly important the media is. And it inspired me to follow my passion, move to New York, and start studying media and technology at the New School in New York. And when I was there, I was completely flabbergasted, in lack of a better word, about how incredibly important technology is going to be, not only for the media, but for every single business. And I saw it change the world right in front of my eyes. And I was fascinated. And I continued working with technology, eventually landed a job as a trainee in Schibsted, and continued working with technology there. And then I was speaking at Oslo Innovation Week, and I saw Anita Schjøll Brede speak about her experience as the first Norwegian to spend time at the Global Solutions Program at Singularity University. And later she posted on Facebook that she was going to host a national competition for a new spot to attend Singularity University. And I decided to apply, and against what I think is all odds, I won that competition, and I was able to spend 3 months at the Global Solutions Program at Singularity University at NASA Research Center in Silicon Valley, and that was probably the best experience of my entire life. And ever since then, technology has kind of been my passion.
Is it possible to summarize your experience? What did you learn?
Well, imagine 3 months, 15 hours a day of
this.
exponential technologies, and lots of inspiration on how to apply those technologies to solve humanity's global grand challenges. But aside from the amazing content and the incredible speakers and the wonderful staff that took so well care of us, I think the most important thing that I left there with was the family of all the other people that went there. I mean, they're so diverse, so different. They all have their different skill sets. Their different expertises, passions. And living on top of each other in such an isolated experience for 3 months, I mean, you get so incredibly close. And they changed my life both professionally and personally. And it's by far, it's hard to understand when you haven't been there, but it's just unbelievably incredible.
Is it possible to say that you've been working with gender equality and diversity issues since then?
No, I was working with that actually way before.
Okay.
I started the Technology Network for Women when I moved back from New York, and I missed, like-minded women who were interested in technology. So my former boss and I, we decided to start a network to get more women engaged. And not necessarily, first of all, it didn't start by wanting to gather the women who were already in tech, but it was more of getting women who are working in jobs that are going to become more and more technology-driven, and then inspire them to lean in and learn more about technology and see how technology is going to influence their fields. So that was the first part. And then later, my today co-founder, she went to the UN and she heard Emma Watson's opening speech to the He for She campaign, and she was incredibly inspired by that. Emma Watson said that if not now, then when? And if not me, then who? And she came back and she called me and she was like, "We should do this in Norway." So it started with a campaign and eventually it evolved. But gender equality has always been a very, very close issue to me.
And why is it so important, do you think, for the future?
Well, I mean, the future consists of everyone, right? I mean, 50 and 50% men and women. And we talk about technologies and we predict how they're going to affect us. And it's really impossible to say just how they will. But what we do know is that the world is going to consist of all of us. And it's very, very important that the products that we create actually respond to everyone's needs. And I think today we see a lot of examples where they're not. And because technology is going to be so fundamental in everything that we do, I think it's especially important that we get girls into technology so that they also contribute to shaping our future.
And you've been organizing events to facilitate this. You mentioned on the stage earlier, girl tech camps and meetups. What can you tell us about that? How's that been?
So the last few years, we've been working more towards younger girls. It started with working with older women, my age basically, even though I'm just 30, 26 at the time. But we understand that there's a pipeline issue, right? I mean, there's not that many girls studying technology today, and we need to get more girls in. And we're not really sure why there aren't that many girls, because there used to be a lot. I mean, if you look at history, women used to be called computers. I recommend everyone to watch the movie Hidden Figures. But what we saw is that in the 1980s, when computers were marketed into households, they generally were marketed as a outlet to play games. And they were naturally games that were very sci-fi. And they appealed to young boys who got the computers in their rooms, and they became better and better at computers. So when that generation entered college, the boys knew computers very well, and the girls kind of fell away. So we saw a very, very steep decrease in women in technology in that time. And we need to change that. And I think part of it is getting more role models visible. So what I mentioned on that stage was this research from Microsoft that shows that if a girl has a role model in STEM, she's more than twice as likely to be interested in that field. And we've been working closely with many different organizations in Norway to have more role models, women in tech, visible, so that girls see that, okay, she's doing it, then maybe I can do it. And it does actually have a tremendous effect.
Can we define the STEM subjects for those who don't know?
Yes, science, technology, engineering, and math.
And you mentioned that organizing these camps for younger girls actually proved successful for the municipalities and the regions in Norway?
Yes, so there's one municipality in Norway that has had this, it's called Girls in Technology translated. And they've worked after this model of showing role models, women in technology to younger girls. And they've seen that there's been an increase of women 4.5 times studying technology compared to the other regions, which has only been 1.5 times over the past 10 years. So we do see that it has had an effect. Obviously, it could probably be measured better, but we're hoping, and it's only been going on for now 2-3 years in Norway, but we're hoping that it's going to give a good effect in the years to come.
What can you tell us about the campaign that you initiated a few years ago called hashtag She's Got This, or Hun spanderer?
Hun spanderer. Yeah, so we started that campaign in 2015. We wanted to raise awareness on unconscious bias and gender stereotypes because obviously we wanted to work with gender equality in a country that's ranked the second most gender equal in the world, right? So you have to look at what's not the obvious places where we've reached gender equality in terms of laws, but in the many things that we don't necessarily think about or are aware of, which is the unconscious bias and the gender stereotypes. So we wanted to do it with a new approach. We wanted to include men in the conversation. We wanted to use humor, and we wanted to be positive around it. So we basically, our first campaign was encouraging women to take men out for dinner or beer or whatever, and pick up the bill, which stereotypically a man would do. And in return, men would have the conversation about unconscious bias and gender stereotypes, and they would have speaking cards that had a bunch of the research on them, and they would discuss a lot of the things that, men are just not aware of because they haven't had to experience it throughout an entire lifetime in the same extent as women.
But do you transform that from a campaign into a business as well?
We did, yes.
So what is the business?
So 2 years after, we launched another campaign, but this time it was towards corporations or the business sphere in Norway. And what we saw was that there is an enormous will to change and to make their leadership more gender balanced. And there's a lot of research on the problem, but very little research on the solutions. So we decided to partner up with CORE, which is the Center for Research on Gender Equality in Norway. And then we got 10 large businesses to work with us to do research on how to actually improve gender balance and validate those solutions. So they're going to do that. And then at the same time, we're building a platform that basically maps the gender balance on 10 different indicators, divided into 5 levels, separated into 2 roles, and then basically giving them a very good overview of where the problems rise, right? Because only when you know where the problem is, you can start accurate patchwork. And then we're going to be developing that platform further on, but I can't talk about that yet.
Okay. But when you work at Singularity U as a faculty member, what do you teach? What is your message?
Oh, it's so wonderful because I get to teach my passion. I get to teach diversity in technology. And that's not just limited to gender. It's a bunch of other different parameters. I mean, ethnic diversity, religion, function, sexuality, all kinds of diversity. And I have a tremendous honor, privilege, and responsibility to be able to communicate the importance of this to business leaders, hopefully in time across the world.
Norway is one of the few countries that have actually legislated board member equality, or do you call it that? Gender equality in board
yes.
Representation. Mm-hmm. How's that been working out from your perspective?
Well, I think it's a bit too early to say, but obviously they have reached 40% women in many boards, but then you saw that a lot of companies changed their structures so that they didn't have to comply with that rule. So that's an interesting trend in and of itself. But I think the effects of that kind of a law we'll have to wait and see what happens. But if we're to believe all the other gender research that is done on this from many different consulting houses, BCG and McKinsey and stuff, gender equality, gender balance, and diversity in companies has a tremendous effect on profitability and innovation and general
Yeah,
good.
that's what I was going to ask. I mean, when you meet executives and CEOs and owners, what kind of business case do you bring when you talk about diversity and equality?
Well, there's a very large study done from McKinsey in 2017 that examined more than 1,000 companies in 22 countries, and they found that the companies who have the most ethnically diverse teams, they outperform their peers on profitability by 33%. And then a recent report from BCG found that the companies who score the highest on ethnic diversity derive 38% more of their revenue from innovative products and services compared to other companies over the past 3 years. So there's a lot of research that points to this, and there's more and more and more. I mean, there's a bunch of different cases. But what you see is often that companies say, well, we have a lot of women, so it's not a problem. But what you see is that you actually have to have 20% women in management and leadership in order to see any kind of effect on the revenue or profit from innovation. And it's also interesting because it's correlated with disruptive innovations. So that actually goes up when you have better diversity and gender diversity. So all good on that side.
But you mentioned also on stage earlier that there are very few women still in technology in Norway.
Yeah.
And you need to promote them as role models, etc. But I think from my perspective, I'm really trying to get these women to come, for example, to join the podcast, and they don't have the time because they are so busy because everyone wants their attention.
Yeah.
Because they are role models.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a problem?
Well,
that the ones who are, standing out, they are being swamped with suggestions and proposals.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another reason to look for new talents, right? I mean, we get when we first see one, right? We're just like, oh my God, everyone throws themselves at that person. But I think role models, female role models, also should try to find new role models, right? To lift up new women and new girls that can also be role models, because then we can get more. And then it's obviously your role and other media's role to start highlighting the new people that are coming, because yes, there are a bunch of them, but they're swamped, just as you say. But we need to get more. And the only way to do that is actually to lift them up, give them
and
some
recognize
light.
the emerging talents.
Exactly, yeah.
You lived in Oslo, Stockholm, New York, San Francisco. How do you spend your time now? Where do you live? What do you do?
I live in Oslo right now and might be moving to Stockholm next year. Very excited about that. I travel a lot around both in Norway and around the world. And I do a lot of speaking on technology. I do a lot of speaking on women in technology, diversity in technology, and unconscious bias, obviously. I do a lot of public speaking on that. But we are working with writing a book right now on the topic of unconscious bias and gender stereotypes. And we're also developing this platform where you know what it's like when you're starting a company. You're kind of doing everything. So we're doing everything from pitching to writing to designing the actual platform to doing the product management together with the developers. We're running around to different companies, having meetings with them. There's a bunch of different things to do. So I'm very excited for the day when we can start hiring awesome people to do those jobs better than us.
Exactly, which maybe brings us to artificial intelligence, because that's an interesting area where unconscious bias will play a big role, or plays a big role now. Mm-hmm. How do you think we'll manage that difficult question when it comes to, for example, gender equality?
Well, I think what technology companies really need to do is ensure that they have diverse people developing it, because I mean, all of us are talking about artificial intelligence, how it's going to change our lives, how it's going to affect everything that we do, but we're talking scarily little about how few people are developing it and how homogeneic the people who are developing it are. And when we know that these products are going to make decisions on our behalf in the future, we need to have people making or deciding what kinds of decisions they're going to make that are actually going to benefit everyone and not just the people who are reflected from the ones creating it. So one example is I saw that one of the widely used data sets to train these artificial intelligence algorithms consist of 75% men, 80% white people. And then an MIT researcher found that the facial recognition algorithms from Microsoft and IBM and Facebook are 99% likely to accurately identify a white male, but have an error rate of 35% when it comes to identifying a black woman. Now, imagine these kinds of failures when we start scaling the systems and outsourcing our decision-making to AI systems in everything from, our hiring practices to our loans, to our insurances, and even our self-driving cars, right? So it's so incredibly important that we have diversity. And I cannot put enough emphasis on the responsibility that technology companies have to ensure that.
What is your main tip for people who wants to make the world a better place? I mean,
well, there are many things you can do. I think you're doing it right now.
Exactly.
Just interviewing so many people about the future and giving them some positive outlight, or what it's called, on what's coming.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm the solution here.
Yes, you are the solution.
Do you have any reading tips for people interested in these topics?
I'm way too impatient to read
or
books,
podcast
unfortunately.
Tips.
Yes. Okay. So podcast tips. I think Sam Harris has great podcasts. He has very in-depth, long conversations with very, very smart people. He has too few women on his podcast. So Sam Harris, if you ever listen to this, that is something that you should think about. And I think the newsletters from Azim Asar, The Exponential View, is excellent. He has a very good analysis of the large trends going on in the world, and he also has fun tidbits of cool technologies that are happening. Anything that is written on futurism or SU Hub is often very cutting edge, very cool. And then listen to your podcast, of course.
Sure. Now, who do you think we should interview?
Who have you interviewed until now? Wait, at SU or just in general?
In general.
If you haven't interviewed Anita Sköldbreda...
Oh, I did yesterday.
Isn't she amazing?
She's amazing.
Yeah, I think you should also interview Laila Pavlak, who's...
Did yesterday.
Okay. So you've got them all covered then. What kind of person are you looking for?
Could be an international person, future thinker.
One I really, really think is awesome, she might be hard to get, and again, to your fact of role models being swamped, is Manoush Zomorodi. She used to be the podcast host of Note to Self. And she is just amazing. She's really, really inspiring. She's a great communicator. And she's been very interested in technology, and I think she's inspired a lot of women and men to become interested in it because she humanizes it, and she talks about a lot of the ethics that we have to address in technology, and she talks about how it affects our personal lives, which I think in the end we're all very interested in knowing how it's going to do.
Great. Thank you so much, Isabelle Ringnes.
Thank you so much
for joining us. You can be found at isabelleringnes.com.
Yes, or actually I haven't updated that website for a while, so if you want to follow along, go to my Instagram, isabelle.ringnes. That's me.
And Tenk is TENK, Norge.com.
Yes, but go to she'sgotthis.co.
She'sgotthis.co. Oh yeah, great. Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you can find anything you want on hejaframtiden.se. My name is Christian von Essen, and we'll speak to you soon again. Thank you.